Distribution in a digital age. I'm so excited to welcome Michael Clemens, the Director of Photography for the Las Vegas Raiders, and Josh Nishan, the Digital Content Coordinator for the University of Southern California Athletics, who I'm sure has had a busy couple of weeks here. Welcome, guys. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Going well. Thank you, Bob.
Awesome. And I think we're going to kick things off with Michael.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm Michael Clemens, Director of Photography for the Las Vegas Raiders. I'll go a little into the backstory of how I got here, which is not the typical route, probably. I graduated from film school at UC Santa Barbara. Right after college, I became a production assistant for Robert Zemeckis, who directed Back to the Future and Roger Rabbit, all that stuff. And my first film with him was Forrest Gump. And then after that, I took over as his first assistant on several other movies. I was always interested in being the creative guy, and I was tired of working for the creative guy. I wanted to be the creative guy. So all of Zemeckis's movies had tons of visual effects in them. So that interested me. So I ended up leaving and learning nights and weekends how to be a compositor in the movie business, in the visual effects industry. So I ended up working at places like Industrial Light and Magic and DreamWorks and Image Movers, all those kind of places, and on a bunch of the big blockbustery kind of movies that usually have all those effects in them. I also started my own little photography company, which was just me, but again, like even visual effects, you think it's creative, but there's so many cooks in the kitchen, and it got kind of tiring of everybody saying, oh, make it bluer, make it redder, make it greener. And I just wanted to make it the way I wanted to make it. So I thought, well, I've been shooting since I was in high school. And I thought between that and I had my first daughter and I wanted to not go back to work. And so I started doing my own photography, and I was doing it for weddings and portraits and all that good stuff. After that, the visual effects industry, while I was still in it and I was doing photography on the side, the writing was on the wall for visual effects, and that most of the work was slowly, or not so slowly, going out of this country. So what used to be going from one movie to the next became, well, we're not sure when the next one's coming in, we'll let you know. So I ended up leaving that industry and I went to Apple, where I was the compositing supervisor for the image studio. So all the phones and iPads and all that kind of stuff that you see on their website and billboards and whatever, we created those digitally. So taking some of the visual effects background and helping to raise the bar of that. And then all the while still doing photography, and I saw an ad online somewhere for an assistant photographer for the Oakland Raiders. And I was like, gosh, that is the little boy's dream. So I applied and I did not get that job. And that job was less of shooting, and which I didn't know, and more of entering metadata and archiving and all that kind of stuff. But they saw my work and they said, we have game day photographers, so we would love for you to be a game day photographer. And based on your style, the thing we'd love for you to focus on are the Raiderettes. So that was my first gig with the Raiders, was shooting the Raiderettes. And while I gained a ton of respect for them, how hard they work, I had no idea. They were on all four corners of the field, so I would be doing these laps continually through the game, and they were seeing my shots and said, while you're walking around there, if you want to take a little football too. So I did that, and they were loving that. And then the next season, it was a new Raiderette director, and she had a photographer that she had used, and so she wanted to use him. And so the creative director for the Raiders said, oh, okay, no problem, great, we'll take Michael. So then I just focused on football and did that for 2 years. And then as they were going to make the move to Las Vegas, they asked if I'd be interested in making that move with them and taking over the department and being the director of photography. So that's where I am now. So kind of a weird way to get there, but I feel very fortunate, and I still feel like it's a little boy's dream every time I walk onto a field and get to talk to the football players. There were tons of challenges, obviously, with COVID. This image is one of the saddest I took this year. It's this brand new stadium that's incredible and no one's seen it. And some of the challenges are delaying starting for me. I was supposed to start in April, and then that was right when the stay-at-home order, and so I was just sitting there waiting till July when I finally got to start. There was constant uncertainty whether there was going to be a season or not. Could there be a season safely? The rules would change every day. I can go here, now I can't enter this door anymore, or now though that mask you're wearing is no longer acceptable for the NFL rules, and it just changed every day. So you had to really be flexible. I had no introduction to anyone. So we have a brand new stadium, we have a brand new headquarters, and 95% of the employees have never seen either. I was on a special tier, so I got to, because I couldn't do my job from home, photographing the players, I got to go in, but it was really difficult because no one was there to say, hey, everybody, Michael's here now. So I'm just on the field and people looking at me going, who is this guy? So that was the tough part, trying to gain people's trust and the players and coaches. I had to test every day. This is one of the hardest things for me because my family is still in Oakland, and I thought, well, it's only an hour away on a flight, but I had to be tested every single morning of my life. So I couldn't get home. I only went home twice. Once on Thanksgiving, the nice people in the testing trailer came in at 5 a.m. for me so I could test, take a 6:30 flight, go home, do Thanksgiving, fly back at 6:30 the next morning so I could test again. Otherwise, I can't do my job. So that was really challenging. Access became more and more limited. The last few weeks of the season, I could still shoot practice, but I couldn't enter the building anymore. So I had to go through the side door to shoot practice and then leave afterwards and process everything at home. As I said, no employees have really been in the headquarters yet. No fans. It was such a weird, crazy, I don't think people realize how important fans are. We'd score a touchdown and you'd hear the team clapping and nothing else. It was so bizarre. It just felt like nothing mattered. Travel was difficult. I had never traveled with the team. So first game of the season was on the road during this crazy time. One of the examples is like game day. That Sunday morning, you leave your hotel at 7 a.m. with the mask on, and you at the stadium, all the pregame stuff, the whole day, you get on the buses to go to the airport and the airplane home. All the while, the mask cannot come off. So I'd wear that thing for 15, 16 hours because we always fly home after the game, and it wouldn't come off till I'm in the parking lot of the headquarters that night. Extra pressure not shooting COVID violations. The players weren't always perfect with the rules. And then I couldn't publish it. If I did, these players would get fined or the organization would get fined. So a lot of pressure there. And lastly, I was the only photographer allowed on the field on game day. So in the past, there have been 6 photographers on the field just for the Raiders. And now they're like, no, just you. So good luck. So a little bit of pressure, but luckily everybody seemed to be happy and I got in the swing of things. A little bit about the organization. It's incredible. It really is a family business. There is a direct line to the top of the organization, which is so rare, I think, in pro sports. You're treated like family. Everyone has a complete respect for every role in this organization. They're steeped in tradition and a huge desire to win. Incredibly loyal, sometimes to a fault. And I had such support. They knew my limitations with COVID and access and all the stuff that we had to follow based on NFL rules. So they were incredibly supportive the whole time. This is hopefully they'll share this out so I don't have to go through line by line. You'll be bored to tears, but this is essentially a game day for me. It's an incredibly long day. A normal 1 o'clock game, get up at 6:30, and I'm not really finished with the day until midnight or so. And then it continues on to the next day as well. All of the stuff in orange, I was just trying to point out where PhotoShelter comes into play in my workflow. And it's really all about transmitting for access to people in the organization. Especially with COVID, I was the only guy out there. You have to be literally everywhere at the same time. And again, they were so supportive. So if I didn't get something, no one said a word. So hopefully next season we'll have some more people out there for coverage. This is my basic process, which I use a cellular pack that's hardwired to my camera. And so as I'm shooting, I can, after a touchdown or a sack or a big play of some kind, or even just a candid moment on the sideline, something that I like, I can then transmit it directly via FTP through to PhotoShelter, and it goes into this incoming FTP folder. And we've set it up so we allow certain groups to have access to that. So they can, all these different departments in the organization can push it out to social, video, creative, PR, our partners, and the stadium. And it's literally for those that can't watch it on television or anywhere, they can literally see what's happening as the game is going on. And the biggest part of that for my team is preparing these galleries. So on game day, those first two there are ones that my editor, who's still currently in Oakland, he's hopefully coming out soon, but he is accessing all the images I'm sending, and he is putting together two galleries during the game. One is the pregame stuff, and then one is the game day stuff. So all the action, and he's doing it pretty close to live. So it's incredible. And then those other galleries are ones that we do after the fact. The next day, that night, we're really putting these together for the next day. Let's see, and here's just an example of what some of the galleries look like. I use FTP to PhotoShelter for so many different facets of shooting. So at practice, I am transmitting, because the thing in my previous life, whether it be my own photography company or visual effects, it's about getting it as beautiful and perfect as possible. And here it is about speed, speed, speed. So even in practice, there's a window where media can come in and watch and take pictures and do whatever. And especially on days where there's a new player that is suiting up for the first time with us, we want to get those images out first. So I die a little inside that they're going straight from the camera out, but it's the first time I've had to deal with that. So, but it's the only way we've been able to get it done, and it's been a lifesaver for sure. Same, like I said, with game day, everything from the anthem and pregame to game action. That top right one was in Cleveland in November, and from a boy that grew up in Los Angeles, that was the coldest I've ever been in my entire life. And other things too, that someone will say, hey, we need this shot of the stadium right away. So instead of even waiting, I'll run out there, transmit it. We have media day, which is that shot on the right, press conferences, which is the one on the bottom there, with the head coach, who should have been looking at the reporters, but instead he's staring into my soul. And then the behind the scenes stuff for the Raiderettes, they had a photographer that was shooting a calendar, and they wanted a little behind the scenes stuff. This is just an example of some of the stuff I've implemented, which is the silver and black and white gallery that we do after a game day or after a practice or something that we have a little time to edit and actually make look the way we want. So this is another workflow that has really changed the game for us. It's this single sign-on and complementing it with workspaces. The way it used to work was people would write to me and say, hey, we need a photo of Derek Carr for some ad we're doing or something. Well, when you do a search for Derek Carr, there's 9 million shots you get back. So you have to be in someone's head and guess what they're looking for. So you'd send them something and they'd say, nah, that's not quite what I'm looking for. Can you send me another? It's like, okay, I'll pick another one and send it. And then sure enough, it's not the right one either. So we've opened it up to the entire organization where anyone with a Raiders.com email can log on to our entire photo library. And so this is what it will look like. They'd log in, they'd go to this portal, and they would click on the galleries link, and we can set who has access to see what. And for us, there's only a few things that aren't open to everyone, but mostly the entire database from the last 60 years is available for everyone to see at any time. And then they can kind of take ownership of what they want, what's in their head. And also it takes the pain from us of like this constant back and forth of us trying to read someone's mind. So they find the images they want and they save it to a workspace. And once they're done saving the few images they need, this is just a process we've implemented as we use Basecamp, which is another application. It's kind of like a to-do list kind of thing, task list. So they'll ask for download access, and that gives us a chance. One, they've done all the work. Two, they've chosen the one they want. Three, we can now look to see, okay, well, what are you using this for? Where is it going? We can kind of validate it first. We don't give anyone download access in the organization. And then once we see what they want it for and what they need it for, we can approve it and say, okay, great. And then we give them easily with the click of a button or two, allow download access to use these as they need, as well as if they're collaborating in a workspace with other people, approvals and comments, so they can have a conversation about an image. And then it's really a win-win for everybody. They get to own that creative. We don't have to be searching through millions of images that hopefully read, and we've read someone's mind. And that is the Raiders motto, really, is just win, baby. So that is what I have for you today. So thanks so much.
Hello, my name is Josh Sean, and I would like to thank PhotoShelter Brands for inviting me to speak at today's summit. It's such a great honor to present on behalf of Usc Athletics, and I am so excited to share our workflow strategy as a major college program. I'm happy to share our process about how our creative team receives photos, what happens after games, and how this all benefits our student athletes. Now, unlike Michael, I am not a photographer, but I will speak on behalf of what goes on from our creative side. So before I get into details of our workflow, I would like to share some quick facts about USC Athletics that should provide some context. We are a department that fields 21 varsity sports teams. Even though we work heavily on football and men's basketball, we also have Olympic sports with strong history, like men's and women's volleyball, tennis, swimming, water polo, and track. This year, because of COVID, we've had 20 of our 21 teams competing in March. The only team that didn't compete was actually our football team, though they start spring camp next week. We've been PhotoShelter users for 4 years. We have tens of thousands of photos in our library. We're 2 terabytes of data. So that's how long it's really taken to develop our strategy. And the last thing I want to share is our new vision at USC Athletics, which is to be the most student athlete centered program in the country. This is made by our new athletic director, who was hired in November 2019 and just became official 6 months ago. This drives our department in how we've navigated through COVID, and it holds our staff accountable in making sure that everything we do at USC benefits our student athletes at the end of the day. I also need to start by giving all the credit to our outstanding photographer, John McGillen. John has been our official photographer for the last 8 years and recommended to the department 4 years ago that we create a library through PhotoShelter. He's great. He also shoots for the NFL on Sundays at Rams and 49er games. But right now, John is with our men's basketball team at the NCAA tournament. And speaking of the tournament, I also need to use this opportunity to shout out our men's basketball team, who just made it to the Sweet 16. The Trojans had a resounding win on Monday over Kansas, who of course is always an elite basketball program. This is the furthest we made it in tournament since 2007, and it's such an exciting time for our department right now, especially considering where we were all at this point of the year a year ago today. So just real quick, just wanted to show more photos from our win on Monday night. And we're also very fortunate to have John and Team Bubble and delivering us these shots. One of the things that makes March Madness so great is just seeing these guys celebrate. And we're thankful John can get up close and personal for these shots. So shout out to the Trojans. Shout out to the other 3 teams from the Pac-12 Conference Champions with us in Sweet 16. We certainly surprised a lot of critics at the conference. And now our distribution strategy. So our game day distribution strategy is largely possible with John being able to FTP photos directly into PhotoShelter from his camera. So similar to Michael, sorry, John has a virtual Ethernet setup to transmit photos that allows him to do this quickly. There are a few of us working in the FTP folder during games. I'm pulling John's photos for website content. Our social media team is using them for Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And we have a graphic designer with us in the press box who uses them to make graphics on the fly and also touches up the best shots during games. In terms of network, we have a huge advantage at the LA Coliseum for football games compared to other stadiums. The Coliseum has a separate network on the field just for photographers and anyone else working down below. So we've had this for the past three football seasons, and it's made the upload process run so flawlessly. Whenever there's a big play and a touchdown, we usually start seeing John's takes within a minute. So shout out to USC, shout out to the Coliseum for making this investment for us. Since these photos come in so quickly, a cool feature that I'm able to do at home games is create a photo slideshow for video boards that goes up during timeout. So the image that you're seeing on your left, that's what the fans see whenever there's a timeout. They can look up and we get all of John's photos that he takes during games, and we're able to put them up on the video board. Our social team also loves to share photos instantly from big plays. So the fast networks allows us to capitalize on all those moments. The network at home basketball games, the Galen Center, isn't also far behind in speed either. So our process at away games is also roughly the same since John travels on football trips and most basketball trips. And we do have a few contingency plans if we can't FTP photos, like even using good old iMessenger to relay some photos. In case you're wondering how we've been doing during COVID, the photo left is me working with Aubrey, our assistant director of social media. John shot this photo of us while we were working at the Pac-12 tournament 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas, so we're doing just fine. But seriously though, when PhotoShelter invited me to speak, they asked me to talk about how COVID has affected our workflow. To be completely honest, it really hasn't at all once we finally started playing games again, which proves that our game day strategy works. This year, I've worked all but one of our football games this season from home, and I'm still in LA as our men's basketball team is in the NCAA tournament. Even though I would love to be back on site, I'm still working with photos just as I was working the press box. And if anything, our workflow has allowed us to add some unique duties during COVID. One addition we had to make to our process this COVID year was creating an online media center. This is for media outlets who couldn't attend practices or couldn't send full talks to games because of the strict protocols here in LA County. So we made some pool photos available for the media to download after practices and throughout games. And this just shows that we're leaning on our workflow more than ever to do our jobs. After games, John reviews his takes and uploads a final touch-up set within 12 hours, usually in the same night if we play in an afternoon game or next morning if our game kicks off late. Shout out to Pac-12 After Dark. We usually expect about 300 photos for football games and around 100 for all other sports. Once the photos are uploaded, either myself or an intern will tag every single photo in the gallery with player names and keywords. And as many of you understand, tagging has been a big feature that's been a game changer in almost every imaginable way possible since I came to USC 4 years ago. We built our library in such that my goal for anyone in our department is to find the exact photo they're looking for in under 10 seconds. And as I said earlier, we have 21 teams at USC, which adds up to more than 650 student athletes. So organization tag photos have been really huge for us. Because our photo strategy continues to evolve, there's been a bigger demand to get these tagged as quickly as possible. For instance, our social media team 4 years ago was like, wow, this is awesome that I'm able to find a photo so quickly, to now they're like, can we get a football game all tagged ASAP or next morning so we can send these players right away? Once photos are tagged, the rest of the department who uses photos, whether it's marketing, partnership, fundraising, directors of operations, and so on, are clear to use these going forward. This is also when we start exporting into Influencer, the program we use to send photos directly to student athletes, and more on that is coming up. Here at USC, photo shoots that John conducts with every athlete on all 21 sports are just as valuable as game photos themselves. This has been an important component in our visual strategy, as we want to bring the focus to student athletes in all of our graphics we create, as well as featuring them on our website. I also want to make another shout out to our graphic designer, Jesse Wu, who I believe is in the audience right now. He's such an essential part of our communication strategy, and quite frankly, probably the busiest person in our department right now. We do also use Basecamp, like the Raiders here at Usc Athletics, but for a completely different purpose, and that's to track our workflow through graphics needs. So just like game photos, photos that we take from photo shoots, they get tagged, organized, and easy to find for our creatives to use for any purpose. These also goes, again, directly to our student athletes, which segues into the last but huge part of our workflow, which is distributing photos directly to student athletes. So full disclosure, this initiative is completely headed by our social media team. I can only speak on our general strategy of why we're doing this, but I invite you to reach out to them if you would like to learn more. Now, I know there's another panel later dedicated today about advocates and brand storytelling, but our own strategy here at USC that's growing exponentially. As mentioned a few times, we use our partnership with Influencer to export photos directly to student athletes' phones. We know that student athletes care so much about social media. They draw a ton of likes, a ton of followers on their accounts, and aspire to be influencers, so we support them by providing content. We noticed that this is a big hit with athletes in all skill levels. We have a basketball player who's likely going to be the #2 pick in this year's NBA draft. He loves using John's photos for his Instagram account. We also have athletes who, quite frankly, don't get a lot of playing time, but understandably milk all they can from their photo shoots. It helps us out because they're bragging to the world about being USC student athletes. Huge thing about influencers is that its system can actually read PhotoShelter's tags. When our social team exports a tag gallery, influencer system automatically sources photos into each athlete's account and pings them in when they have new photos. So as now you can see, that's why everyone wants photos tagged right away. And a quick case study that I want to share, we have a cornerback named Elijah Griffin who declared for the NFL draft at the end of this past season. We fed him a ton of photos and videos through Influencer, and he already had a huge following on Instagram. But our social team saw through analytics that we were able to grow his follower count by 15% since September 1st, which is roughly 9,000 followers. And finally, we know that this initiative will only become bigger when student athletes are allowed to monetize all of this under the impending name, image, and likeness legislation. We feel our department is leading the forefront in being prepared for these changes. Our football team just went through a recruiting and content rebrand to get ahead of this shift. And we established a creative studio that will help our football players build their brands. So we obviously anticipating this growing tenfold. The advice that I just want to offer to anyone listening who wants to get into college sports and make a jump in their career, look into this. Pay close attention to how this transforms college athletics. Every big program currently is trying to figure out how to work with this, and this is only going to open a lot more opportunities on the marketing and branding side, especially more on the player front. And that's our journey of how we distribute photos in the digital age. Again, we know the power that photos have in maintaining our brand here at USC Athletics, and we expect our strategy to continue to evolve. So before I start taking questions, thank you again to PhotoShelter for allowing me to present today. And thank you all here at the summit for listening. And as we say here at USC, fight on.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. We are getting so many questions and comments for both you and Michael. I want to invite Michael back up to the stage. All right, he's here. And we're actually just unfortunately for one question, but I'm hoping that excuse me, you guys will join the Slack conversation, and hopefully you can see there's a bunch of questions really for both of you on the content, and there's actually a few more that I still need to add there. But anyway, there's a lot of questions and conversations, Michael, about kind of that cell pack and the process around that. So if you could speak to kind of how that's set up, or you know, kind of how that works, and then for the both of you, hopefully this will you'll be able to go from one to the other. There is kind of I know you both talked about other people in your organization, the stakeholders using the photos, the images. Kind of what was, maybe in a minute, let's say, sort of the process of training them or explaining to them and really having them understand what you need from them and what they need to do to get that workflow down.
Well, the first question you have is a cell pack. It's actually really quite simple. It literally is this standalone pack that has actually 2 carrier cards in it in case you're at a stadium where they don't have one. So it's like Wi-Fi, AT&T and Verizon cards in there. And it's an Ethernet cable that comes out of it, and I plug it into the side of my camera. And so you just set up in the back of, in the menu of your camera, the FTP information that PhotoShelter provides, which is really simple, and you create a preset. So I actually have a couple that if I want to, the reason why I have to use this is because Wi-Fi with Canon, it doesn't have the technology in it like a phone, where when you see a Wi-Fi network with your phone, when you start losing signal, it'll say, oh, here's another access point. I'm just going to jump to this and I'll continue on that network. But for some reason, Canon didn't implement that. So when you see a Wi-Fi network, you see 57 channels and you don't know which one you're next to. So this was the solution that someone created for that reason. So it's really quite simple. And then just on the back of your camera, on my with a Canon, there's a button that says set, and you create that as your send button. So as I'm shooting, I see a photo that would be great for the gallery, hit go, it sends it. I can keep shooting while it's sending, and it's using that pack. So I just try to constantly feed. It's really quite easy. Mm-hmm. It was my biggest stress when I started, but and this year was interesting because there are no fans, so the cell signal was really quite strong. So we'll see how it works next season. But and as far as teaching people, we created my team photographer created a doc with all the instructions of how to log into PhotoShelter. Here's the process. We want you to look in the galleries, add it to a workspace. It was really quite simple, and most people have embraced it. Some are old school and they still email us, can we get a photo of so-and-so? And I remind them, oh yes, I can, but here's a real easy way you can own it yourself.
Nice. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, on our end, I mean, again, since I'm not a photographer, I don't really have too much range with this, but I am aware that for football games, John just has a virtual Ethernet set up to where, like, he can just upload directly from his camera, and like that's been the quickest way for him to export photos onto our FTP folder. And just more context about just over our network at the Coliseum. We did just have a renovation that was completed about 2 years ago, and one of the main themes about our renovation is just connectivity. So just making sure that every section has Wi-Fi, as well as anyone that actually needs a Wi-Fi to work it is all set up. So again, that's been really huge for us. In terms of just working with other stakeholders, so John reports with us within marketing and like the social media, and so we've been just kind of the departments that's been like a little bit more centralized to the athletic department in terms of like what everyone needs in terms of communication strategies and like on like just being our visual game plan. So and just because I'm always tagging and looking at all the photos that John puts up, like I can also like kind of understand like what certain stakeholders needs and like exactly the photo that they need for other things.